You're watching the chapter number 3 of the Blender modeling course, where today we'll be creating a 3D model of a radio, and along with that we'll also be learning about some great modeling tools and techniques that will teach you to model the things in an efficient manner. And if you are new to this Blender modeling course, then do check out the last 2 chapters of this series by using the link of the playlist given in the description of this video. So I've opened a new Blender file, and just like the previous 2 chapters, in this one also our step 1 would be to get some reference images for the radio that we'll model in Blender. So I searched on Google for some good reference images of an old stylized radio, and it showed all these results, and out of these I think that this one can be used as the reference image for our 3D model. So first of all we'll download it, and yes, you can download this image by using the link given in the description of this video. After downloading it, I've reopened the Blender project, and to import the image I'll first take my cursor over here, then right click and select horizontal split. Now I'll take this line to approximately half the area of the properties editor, and now we'll change this particular window to the image editor so that we can import the reference image. So click on this icon, and from here select the image editor. Now to import that image, click on the open button, and now open that particular folder where you have saved the reference image. Now select that image and click on the open button, and with this we are having the reference image of the radio added in the image editor, and so we can now begin with the modeling part. So with the cube selected, press tab to enter the edit mode, and first of all we'll make its shape similar to a radio, and to do this thing we'll simply scale it up in the x-axis like this and left click to finalize. After this we'll go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad. Let's zoom in, and let's also slightly reduce the size of this cube in the x-axis. After this, if I look at the reference image, then you can see that the corners of the radio are slightly curved, and to achieve this result we'll be using the bevel tool on the corner edges. So first press 2 for the edge select mode, then we'll be selecting all these corner edges by holding the shift button, and once all these corner edges are selected we'll be applying the bevel tool. So press Ctrl plus B to apply the bevel tool, and if I move my cursor away, then this bevel effect will be seen. To make the corners more rounded, we'll use the scroll wheel in order to increase the number of segments. So let's keep the segments to something like 7 or 8, and after this click the left mouse button to finalize. Now the next thing that I can notice in this reference image of the radio is that the front faces of the radio are extruded inwards, and to achieve such a result we need to select the front face and then extrude it in. Press 3 for the face select mode, then select the front face, and before extruding we'll also apply the inset faces effect in order to create a boundary outside the extrusion. So press I and move the cursor towards the cube. Now left click to finalize, and we'll be doing the same step 2 more times. So press I to insert the face, and after left clicking again repeat the same step. Now the reason why we did this is that we'll be creating a slight extrusion on this face loop that is created in order to give the radio a slightly unique look. But before that, with this front face selected, press E to extrude it backwards, and we won't be keeping it too much deep, so let's keep it to somewhere around here only. And after this we have to select this outer face loop, and to select it at once simply hold the Alt key and then click on any of the edges that is present on this face loop. And it might be possible that you won't be able to do it in one go, and if that happens then simply deselect and try it again on some other edge present in the same face loop. After this we'll press E to extrude it inwards and left click to finalize, and with this we are having a basic structure of the radio ready in our scene. To see how it looks in the object mode, press tab, and to get a better view click on this icon on the top, and from here we'll turn on the show cavity. This will help us to see the empty spaces of the geometry in a much better way. Moving ahead, the next thing that we'll be creating is the slab-like structure which is separating the speaker and the radio controls. So for this, let's again tab into the edit mode, and now we'll be creating some loop cuts around the radio. So for this, with my cursor over here, I will press Ctrl plus R, and by using the scroll wheel, I'll increase the number of loop cuts to a value of 2. Now left click to finalize and right click to cancel the movement, and to bring them closer and reduce their distance, we'll scale them down in the Z axis. After this, press 3 for the face select mode, and we'll be selecting this particular face. Now press E to extrude it, and with this we have this slab-like structure which will be used to separate the speaker part and the radio controls. Now to adjust the extruded face properly, let's go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad, and with the face selected we'll move it in the x-axis and then left click to finalize. Now the basic geometry of the radio is completely ready, and we only need to create some more details and the other parts like the speaker and some radio controls. And in this particular image of the radio, you can see that there is no digital display of the radio frequencies, but for this particular radio we'll be having a digital screen which will show the radio frequency. But first of all we'll work on creating the speaker of the radio. But to create the speaker part, we'll have to create this particular pattern which looks like a metal mesh, or basically the speaker grill. So to do this thing, we first need to select the front face, and now we'll be using the loop cut tool to divide this face into 2 equal parts. But right now, if I enable the X-ray mode and try to add a loop cut by pressing Ctrl plus R, then you will notice that we are not able to add the loop cut on the selected face. And to understand understand why this problem is occurring, I will right click to cancel the loop cut tool. Let's turn off the X-ray mode, and now we'll be hiding all the other faces of the radio except for the selected one. To do this, we'll first use the tool which is called the invert selection tool, and to use it, simply press Ctrl plus I and this will invert the selection. Now press H to hide, and with this we are having only this selected face. Now if I press 1 for the vertex select mode, then you can see that because of the bevel tool, this particular face is not having a total of 4 vertices. In fact, the placement of these vertices is also very irregular, and to solve this problem, we'll be converting it into a simple plane with a total of 4 vertices. And to do this thing, let's first deselect everything, and now we'll be selecting only these vertices on the top left corner. And now Blender has a tool which allows you to merge multiple vertices together into a single vertex, and this is called the merge tool. To use it, simply press M and this merge menu will appear, which will ask you that the selected vertices should be merged at which point. For now, if I select at center, then all the vertices will get merged at their center and we'll be having only a single vertex. Similarly, we'll also be selecting all these vertices on the top right corner, then press M to merge and select at center. Just like this, we'll also select these vertices over here, then press M and select merge at center. And at last, I will also select these vertices over here, then press M and select merge at center. Moreover, we are also having these two extra vertices which have been created because of using the loop tool. And to remove them, simply press X to delete and select delete vertices. Now press A to select everything, and to fill the face, press F, and with this we are having a simple face with a total of 4 vertices. Now if I press Ctrl plus R to add a loop cut, then you will notice that we are no longer seeing the problem of not being able to add the loop cut. Now left click and we'll drag it up like this. Also, to see the remaining parts of the radio, press Alt plus H to unhide. Now press 1 on the numpad to go to the front view, and now we have to place this loop cut that we created properly for the speaker. So press 2 for the edge select mode, then select this edge and we'll move it down in the Z axis. Now left click to finalize, and after this I'll select this face by pressing 3 and we'll extrude it in the backward direction. So press E to extrude it like this and left click to finalize. Let's change the angle, and now you can see that we need to fill the faces on this front side of the slab that we created. So press 2 for the edge select mode, then I'll select these two edges over here and press F to fill the faces. Now press 3 for the face select mode, and we'll be selecting this top face that we'll be using for the speaker part. But to convert it into a speaker, we first need to convert this face into a separate object, and for this we'll be using the separate tool about which we learned in the last chapter of this course. So to separate it, press P and select separate by selection. Now press tab to return back to the object mode, and we'll now select this separated face. Now to make it look like a speaker, we'll be giving it a metal mesh type of structure, and for this purpose we have a modifier in Blender which is known as the wireframe modifier. And to use it, we'll first go to the modifier properties, then click on add modifier, and in the generate, select the wireframe modifier present at the last. To see the effect of wireframe modifier in a much better way, we need to have some more vertices in the geometry. So press tab, press A to select all, then right click and select subdivide. Let's do this step one more time, and if I return back and deselect it, then you will notice that what this wireframe modifier does is that it converts a mesh into a wireframe, and it depends upon the number of vertices and the faces that how dense this wireframe will be. In fact, you also have the controls like the thickness and the offset value for the wireframe created, but right now we need to have a very high number of vertices in order to create a texture for the speaker. So I'll select this, press tab to enter the edit mode, and we'll right click and subdivide it 3 to 4 times. After this, let's return back to the object mode, and now if I deselect it, then you can see that we are having this texture which resembles the mesh metal or the speaker texture. Also, let's reduce the thickness to a value of somewhere around 0.01, and now it looks perfect. Now the next thing that we'll do is to create a digital display for the bottom part, and for this I'll select the radio, then press tab to enter the edit mode, and with the face select mode enabled, we'll select this face at the bottom. Now press shift plus D to create a duplicate and right click to cancel the movement. Let's scale it down like this, and let's also move it downwards in the Z axis. Now we'll be using this face and we'll slightly extrude it in order to create the digital display. But before that, let's also convert it into a separate object. So press P and select selection. Now press tab to return back to the object mode, then deselect everything, and we'll now select this particular face which is now a separate object with the name cube.002. Now press tab to enter the edit mode, press A to select all, and we'll now extrude it slightly in the Y axis. After this, we'll return back to the object mode, and now we need to create some controls for the volume and the tuning. So for this, we'll be using the cylinder object. So press shift plus A, then go to mesh and select the cylinder, press tab to enter the edit mode, and we'll first rotate it in the X axis by 90 degrees, and let's also scale it down. To view it, let's return back to the object mode and we'll move it forward in the Y axis. Now to adjust the position and the scaling, we'll go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad. Now press press G to move it and place it over here. Let's scale it down slightly and place it properly. Let's also go to the side view by pressing 3 on the numpad and we'll move it in the y-axis. Let's also turn on the X-ray mode. Then we'll move it again in the y-axis and place it over here. After this, let's change the angle, and once all the adjustments are made, we'll press tab to enter the edit mode. Then with the face select mode enabled, I'll select this face. Let's push it slightly inwards by pressing G and Y, and for this rotating part of the control, press I to insert the face, then left click and we'll extrude it forward like this. Now to make it rounded, let's return back to the object mode, then right click and apply shade auto smooth, and we'll now be applying the bevel modifier. So go to the modify properties, click on add modifier, and in the generate, select the bevel modifier. Let's reduce the amount from here and we'll keep it to something like 0.01, and now it looks perfect. Now to create another control on the other side also, we'll be using the mirror modifier. So go to the modify properties, click on add modifier, and in the generate, select the mirror modifier. Let's scroll down, and in the mirror object, we'll be selecting the cube, which is basically this radio, and with this we have created almost all the parts of this radio. So we started with this cube that we converted into a radio set, then we made the front part of the radio, the speaker mesh with the help of wireframe modifier, then we created this digital screen and the radio controls. And even though this particular radio in the reference image is not having any antenna, but we'll still be making one for our 3D model. Suppose I want that the position of the antenna should be over here on the top. However, if I press Shift plus A, then go to mesh and select the cylinder to create the antenna, then you will notice that by default every new object gets added at the 3D cursor. But if I delete it by pressing X, and now if I have to move this 3D cursor to a specific position, then simply hold the Shift button, and with this, if I right click at any point, then the position of 3D cursor will get changed. And now if I press Shift plus A, then go to mesh and add a cylinder, then in this case we are having the cylinder added at this specific location. Now to scale it down, press tab to enter the edit mode and press S, and we'll scale it down to a very low size because we'll be using it in order to create the radio antenna. Let's zoom in, and this is the scaling of this antenna right now. Also, to increase its length, let's scale it up in the Z axis by pressing S and Z and then move the cursor away. Let's zoom out, and now to reduce its thickness, if I press S, then you will notice that the height of the antenna is also reducing. But suppose you want to make the changes in the scaling only in the X and the Y axis and not the Z axis, and to do this, simply press S, Shift plus Z. By doing this, the scaling will get applied to the remaining two axes except the Z axis. In a similar way, if I right click and then press S to change the scale and press Shift plus X, then in this case the scaling will change only in the Y and the Z axis and not the X axis. But in this particular case, we want to reduce only the thickness of the antenna. As a result, press S and Shift plus Z to scale it down simultaneously in the X and the Y axis. Then left click to finalize, and this is how this antenna is now looking. Also, let's zoom in over here, and with the face select mode enabled, I'll select this top face and we'll rotate it and then extrude it. So press 1 on the numpad for the front view. Let's zoom in properly, and to rotate the face, press R and rotate it like this. Then to extrude the face, press E to extrude it and left click to finalize. Also, with this top face selected, press S to scale it down in order to reduce the scaling at this particular end. And with this, we are having a simple antenna added for a radio. Also, I'll select the antenna again and let's rotate it in the Z axis like this in order to make sure that the antenna is having a proper rotation. After this, I'll slightly move it up, and let's also tab into the edit mode and I'll slightly scale it up like this. Now return back to the object mode, and finally the modeling of our radio is completely ready. Moving ahead, we'll now be working on finalizing the scene by giving the radio some materials and adding some lighting in order to render the scene. So for this, let's first go to the material preview mode by clicking on this icon. Now I'll select this radio box and we'll be giving it a wood material similar to the one that you can see in the reference image. And to create the material, we also need to have a shader editor window. So for this, I'll expand the timeline editor, and to convert it into the shader editor, click on this icon, and from here select the shader editor. Now the default material is added over here, and to convert it into the wood material, we'll be using the noise texture. So press Shift plus A, then go to texture and select the noise texture. Let's place it over here. Now connect the factor socket to the base color in the principal BSDF. Now to control the scaling of the texture, to create the wood streaks, we'll be adding a vector mapping and a texture coordinate node. So press Shift plus A, then go to input and select the texture coordinate node. Let's place it over here. Now again press Shift plus A, then go to vector and select the mapping node. I'll place this one over here. Now in the texture coordinate node, take the object socket and connect it to the vector, and in the vector mapping node, take the vector socket and connect it to the vector in the noise texture. Now with the scaling value of the mapping node in the X axis, I'll change this to 100, and with this we are having this texture along along with the streaks. Now to make it look like wood, we'll be using the color ramp node. So press Shift plus A in the shader editor, then go to converter and select the color ramp. We'll place it over here, then I'll take the first pointer and move it like this, and similarly I'll take the second pointer and place it over here. Now for the first one, we'll be keeping the color as the black color, but for the second one, we'll be changing the white color to brown. So for this, let's first reduce the brightness from here, and then I'll change the color to something like orange or brown in order to make it look like the wood texture. After this, since we'll be rendering it in the Cycles render engine, so let's also see how it looks in the rendered view. So click on this icon, then in the render properties, change the render engine from Eevee to Cycles, and to get some lighting in the scene, click on this icon and turn off the scene lights and the scene world. And in this way, we are able to get a basic idea of how the texture will look on the radio. Now the next thing that we'll do is to create a separate material for the speaker mesh that we created. So to do this, go to the shader editor, and to remove this material, click on this cross icon. Then click on the new material button, and to give it a metallic look, I'll increase the metallic value to 0.8 and reduce the roughness to 0.2. However, if I zoom in, then you can see that the speaker mesh is having a lot of faces, which makes it difficult to see through it. And if that occurs, then you can press tab to enter the edit mode, and to reduce the number of faces, simply right click and from here select unsubdivide. By doing this, the number of faces will reduce because of the subdivision effect being removed. Now let's get back to the object mode, and now if I deselect it, then we are able to see through the speaker mesh. Also, I can notice here that there's some empty space in between the speaker mesh and the radio set on this right side. So to fix this, let's go to the solid mode, then go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad. Let's zoom in, select the speaker mesh, press tab to enter the edit mode, and we'll scale it up in the x-axis like this. Now return back to the object mode, and let's again switch to the rendered view. Now moving ahead, we'll be applying the same material that we used for the speaker mesh for the radio antenna as well. So I'll select it, and to use the same material, go to the shader editor, click on this icon, and I'll be selecting this material.001. Moving ahead, I'll now select this particular control, and for this one, we'll be creating and using the default material. However, in order to add some colored boundaries for these controls, simply press tab to enter the edit mode, and now we first need to bevel the face which is present on the front. So press Ctrl plus B to bevel it, and with this face loop selected, simply go to the material properties by clicking on this icon and create a new material. After this, in order to assign the specific new material that we have now created to all the selected faces, click on the assign button, and let's also switch back to the rendered view. Let's also return back to the object mode, and now in the base color for the material.003 that we're using for the edge loop, I'll change this to the yellow color, and by doing this, you will be seeing a slight yellow lining added on both the controls. Then I'll go to the metallic nature and increase this to 0.8 in order to give it a golden look. Similarly, I'll go to the roughness value and reduce it to 0.2, and now it looks perfect. If you want, you can do the same thing for the other edges also, but before that, it is also suggested to turn off the real-time display of the bevel modifier. So click on this icon to turn off the real-time display. Now press tab to enter the edit mode, and now we'll be selecting this particular face loop. Hold down the Alt key and left click over here, and to use the same material for this face loop also, simply go to the material properties, and with this golden material selected, click on the assign button. Now return back to the object mode, and let's also turn on the real-time display of the bevel modifier. Now go to the rendered view, and finally this is how the controls of the radio are looking in the scene. Also, if you want, you can change this white color to any other color by selecting this material.002 and changing the base color from here. So you can keep it to blue color or pink color or maybe the red color, but for now I'll be selecting the white color. Also, in order to make it slightly more reflecting, I'll reduce the roughness value to 0.1, and now the materials for the controls are completely ready. Moving ahead, let's now work on creating this digital screen, and let's also add some text over it with the lighting effect. So for this, let's first go to the solid mode. Now we'll select this cube which has the name cube.002, and to remove the wood material from it, click on this minus icon, and let's now work on creating a new material. So in the base color, I'll change this to the black color, and to see the results, let's also switch back to the rendered view. Now for the screen, we are having the black color, and to make the screen smoother and more reflecting, let's go to the roughness value in the principal BSDF and reduce this to 0.1 or 0.2, and now it looks perfect. Now coming to the text part, let's first go to the solid mode, and right now if I try to add the text in the 3D viewport, then it will get added at the location of the 3D cursor. And to place this 3D cursor back at the world origin, the shortcut is to press Shift plus C. By doing this, the position of the 3D cursor will return back to the world origin. Now to add the text, press Shift plus A, then select the text from here. Now let's move it in the y-axis and place it over here, and to get the proper rotation, press R and X and type 90 in the numpad and press enter to confirm. Now go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad, and let's scale it down, press G to move it, and place it according to the screen that we have added in the radio set. So we'll adjust the scaling and the position to place it properly, and after this, to change the text, press tab and press backspace to remove the default text, and now you can type type anything in order to enter the new text, and it totally depends upon you that what you wish to type in the text object here. If you want, you can type a particular radio frequency or maybe a song name, but for now I will be typing the name of my YouTube channel in the text object. After this, return back to the object mode and let's scale it down like this. Press G to move it and place it over here. Now let's also go to the side view by pressing 3 on the numpad, and to move it properly, let's first turn on the X-ray mode by pressing Alt plus Z, then press G to move it in the Y-axis, and you can detect the position of the text object with this yellow dot, which is the origin point of the text object. So we'll move it in the Y-axis like this and place it over here. After that, let's change the view and adjust it properly so that it is very close to the screen that we have created. So let's move it backwards in the Y-axis like this, and now to give it some thickness, we'll go to the object data properties by clicking on this icon, then go to the geometry, scroll down, and in the extrude, we'll increase this to a value of 0.09 or 0.1 meters. Also, you can go to the bevel option and increase the depth of bevel if you want to give some beveling effect to the text in your scene. So right now, I've set the bevel value to somewhere around 0.04 or 0.05, and after this, we are now ready to create a glowing material for the text object. So go to the rendered view, click on the new button in the shader editor in order to create a new material. Now to create the glowing effect, we have to use the emission settings in the principal BSTF. Right now, in the emission, the color is set as white, but the emission strength is at the value of 0. However, if I change the strength value to +1, then in this case, there will be a slight emission or glow applied to this text object. In fact, if I go to the emission color and change this to the red color, then you will notice some slight glow of that particular color applied on the text object. In fact, to give it an even better look, we'll set the base color as the same color that we have used as the emission color. So go to the base color in the principal BSTF and change this to the red color. Also, to give it a metallic look, I'll go to the metallic value and increase this to 0.7, and this will give a slight metallic look to the text object. In fact, to increase the amount of reflections, you can go to the roughness value and reduce this to 0.2 or 0.3, and with this we are having a perfect text with a slight glow effect applied to it. And with this, we are now ready to create the final lighting and render this scene. So go to the solid mode, then to add the base, press Shift plus A, then go to mesh and select the plane. Let's go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad and move the plane down in the Z axis in such a way that it almost touches the bottom of the radio set. After this, left click to finalize, and to scale it up, press tab to enter the edit mode, and we'll scale it up 10 times. Now return back to the object mode, and to give it a basic material, go to the shader editor, click on the new button, and I'll change the base color from white to grey. So reduce the brightness from here, and to see how it looks, let's go to the rendered view, and I think that we should change the base color from grey to purple. Let's also change the brightness. Now for the lighting, let's first turn on the scene lights and the scene world from here, and now we'll be able to see only those lights that we have added in the 3D viewport. By default, we are having this lamp over here which is adding some light in the scene, and apart from this, we can also see some light coming from this text, which is because of the emission color and the strength. Now to add some lighting effect, I'll first select this default lamp, then go to the top view by pressing 7 on the numpad, press G to move it and place it at the back of the radio set. Then for the power, I'll change this to 4000 watt. After this, press Shift plus D to create a duplicate, and I'll place it on the front side on the left hand corner. Then go to the power value and reduce this to 1000 watts. Then create one more duplicate of the selected light by pressing Shift plus D and move it over here in the x-axis. Now to see how the lighting looks, let's change the angle. Also, I'll select both of these lights and move them down in the z-axis according to the height of the radio set. Now zoom in, and now let's also reduce the power of both the lights in the scene. So I'll select this one, and in the power, let's reduce this from 1000 watt to 400 watts, and similarly, I'll select this one and change the power to 400 watts. Also, apart from these point lights, let's also add a spotlight to be placed above the radio model. So press Shift plus A, then go to light, and from here, select the spotlight. Let's move it up in the z-axis and place it over here. Now in the power, I'll change this to 500 watts, and after this, I'll select this light that we added on the front side, and let's move it ahead in the y-axis like this. Then to change its color, I'll go to the object data properties and change the color to the blue color in order to give a slight shade of blue color on this left hand side. Similarly, I'll select this one, move it slightly forward in the y-axis, and for this one, I'll change the color to the red color. Moving ahead, in order to add some lighting for the side faces of the radio model, let's first go to the solid mode. Now we'll be selecting the spotlight, then go to the front view, press Shift plus D to create a duplicate, then right click to cancel the movement, and we'll rotate it in the y-axis by 90 degrees. Press G to move it and place it over here. Similarly, let's create one more duplicate of this light by pressing Shift plus D move it in the x-axis, place it over here, and to change its rotation so that it points towards the radio set, we simply need to rotate it in the z-axis by 180 degrees. So press R, Z and type 180 in the numpad and then press enter to confirm. To see how the lighting looks, let's switch to the rendered view, and finally this is how the lighting is looking in our scene. Also, with the spotlight selected, I'll slightly move it ahead in the x-axis, and similarly, I will do the same thing with this light also. So let's place it over here, and finally, to render the image, press 0 on the numpad to go to the camera view, and to change the angle of camera and its position, click on this lock button to turn on the lock camera to view, and let's also switch to the solid mode, and now we'll be setting the position of the camera by using the middle mouse button. And once the position is finalized, let's go back to the rendered view to see how it looks. Now even though the scene is looking almost perfect, but we still need to make some changes in order to make it even better. So the first thing that I can see here that we can improve is to add some more lighting effect on the front side. So press Shift plus A, then go to light and select the point light. Let's move it forward in the y-axis, place it over here, then press 1 on the numpad to go to the front view. Let's zoom in and we'll change its position and place it over here. Similarly, press Shift plus D to create a duplicate, and we'll place the duplicate light on the opposite side by moving it in the x-axis, then create one more duplicate and we'll place it in the region of the speaker mesh. So let's place it over here. Also, if you want to see the light in the scene in a much better way, then you can switch to the solid mode, and now you can see the position of different lights added in our scene. So for the selected light, I'll place it over here and create one more duplicate, place it over here, and let's do the same step one more time. After this, press 3 on the numpad to switch to the side view. Let's select all the lights over here and move them slightly backwards in the y-axis. Similarly, let's also add some point lights on the side regions. So press Shift plus A, then go to light and add the point light. Let's move it up in the z-axis and we'll place it on this front side. Let's go to the front view, create a duplicate and move it in the x-axis for the opposite side. Also, it completely depends upon you that what lighting setup you choose depending upon your 3D model of the radio. Now to see the lighting effect, let's switch to the rendered view. Also, I will be deleting the spotlights that we previously added, because now we have added a lot of point lights that are perfectly creating a proper lighting in the scene. So I've deleted both of them. Now press 0 on the numpad to go to the camera view. Let's zoom out, and also I'll select the plane, press tab to go to the edit mode, and I'll scale it up 2 times. After this, we'll be reducing these reflections that are falling on the plane by going to the roughness value in the principal BSDF and increasing it to 0.9 or 0.8, and let's also change the base color from purple to the light blue color. And with this, we are now ready to render the image of this radio that we have modeled in today's chapter. So to render it, do ensure that in the render properties, the cycles render engine is selected, and in the sampling, go to the render category, reduce the number of maximum samples to 128 or 256, and now we are ready to render the image. So go to the render option and select render image, and now the rendering has started for this 3D model of the radio that we created. And once it is rendered, you can go to the image menu and save the file by clicking on the save button. But for now, I'll close this window, and with this, we have now arrived to the end of the chapter number 3. Today we learned about some new modeling techniques that we first of all used to model the body of the radio set. Then we learned about the wireframe modifier that we used to create the speaker mesh. Then we created the radio controls, applied the bevel modifier to it, and also the mirror modifier. Then we created a simple text object and even added the emission settings to it. Then in the end, we created a simple lighting setup in order to render a final image of the 3D model of this radio. And yes, if you managed to complete this entire chapter and even created a 3D model of a radio, then don't forget to share the rendered image of the radio model on the Discord server, whose link is available in the description of this video. Also, if you wish to download this particular 3D model of the radio for your own Blender projects and also any other model that I have created in this course, then you can join the Patreon of this channel, whose link is there in the description. And so our next chapter will be the chapter number 4, where we learn to model a camera in Blender, and in this way we'll be learning about some new modeling tools and techniques that you can use to make your own 3D models look a lot better and professional. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, press that notification bell so that you can get timely updates about the upcoming chapters. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.